Well, oh, oh, there I am. Yay. All right. My mystery man is on the other side of us, right here on the right side. So, all right. Thank you, mystery man, for bringing me up. I started talking and then all of a sudden, boop, I'm gone, but I'm back. Yay. All right. So, welcome to the State of Grace live podcast. Now, I know you've heard this before if you've been here before, but what's the state of grace? It's not only my queendom, but it's also our ideal state of being. And that changes. Everybody has their own state of grace. So, what I do with my guest is I have guests usually that have a challenge, right, in their life, and then they overcame that challenge and reached their own state of grace. And they are going to give us the tea today. My mystery guest is going to give us the tea of how he overcame his challenges. I am thrilled to have this guest today with us. He is the author, and he's an author, producer, and one of my favorite people on the planet, son of beloved actor and comedy legend Harvey Korman from The Carol Burnett Show and Blazing Saddles. Hello. Chris has more than 20 years experience in the entertainment industry, working with artists in various capacities, including brand building and representation. He has been working as a consultant for TV Confidential, which is a radio show about television. Chris also joined Solar Films, I hope I said it right, in 2021, becoming co-executive producer on Euphoric Tendencies. Now, Chris' first book. Oh my God. Oh, they're coming for me. Can you hear that? All right. Hold on. All right. No, they're not coming for me. Okay, they left. Okay, good. All right. So, Chris, oh my gosh. Okay, we have like, what's going on? I live in Beverly Hills, so I don't know what's going on. Something's going on in Beverly Hills today. So, Chris's first book, oh my God, it's Harvey Korman's Son, was released in 2020 by Bear Manor Press. His love and respect for his father is written all over the book. And today, Chris will give us the tea on how he overcame his challenges to reach his own state of grace and the important role that his father had in all of this. Please welcome to the virtual stage, Chris Korman.
Hey Grace, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
Fine. You look wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Apparently, there's something going on in Beverly Hills. Did you guys hear the sirens?
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine. I mean, did somebody like rob a Gucci store or? I
Right?
mean,
I don't know.
what?
It's so weird. It happens a lot. Yeah, that's why I
No.
probably should move to a quieter neighborhood. It's crazy, crazy.
What?
So I'm so thrilled that you're here with us. Thank you for being on the podcast. I
My
really
pleasure.
appreciate it. Amazing. So, we're here for you, obviously, and your book. And my first question is to you is what propelled you to write this book?
Well, one thing my wife said, you have so many stories you compiled over 45 years or whatever it's been, and if you can somehow lace it with Harvey, Chris, it makes him more relatable. If it was just a name dropping book, everybody does name dropping books. But
Yes.
Trick, my wife said, make it about your relationship with him, not about just show business, but for your relationship with him because of like your love for baseball. And if you weave it in such a way that people sense that he was more than just a celebrity or more than a public figure, it makes him more relatable to people who don't know who he was beyond show business. And that it makes people realize he had a bigger picture in my life than just being that he was a performance. Like, what did he need to be as an advocate for my learning disability? And how did that affect my life? And because my life has always been kind of two track, which is show business, nonprofit fundraising. So it goes back and forth. And sometimes those worlds can collide in a good
Hmm.
way. Sometimes they can be in a bad way. because it's very easy for people to define me by who my father is and not let me be who I am, because they measure me on, oh, you're affluent, you have money, you have status. I said, well, yeah, because my father has that. That doesn't mean I have it.
Right.
I have it by osmosis by who he is. I still have my own personal challenges I have to overcome or
Absolutely.
compensate with that has nothing to do with him.
Yeah. Yeah, so I
So,
guess there's two reasons why you wrote this book. It's first to show who you are, that you are your father's son, but you're also you.
right,
And also, people have assumptions also about celebrities and how they are. And so I think in this book, you're just showing him like as a regular dad that just happened to have celebrity friends. Um,
right.
I love the book, by the way. It
Thank you.
was it was very entertaining, very good, and also um, it was very touching. It was really it's a beautiful book.
Thank
And
you.
you had a challenge that you had to overcome. Um, what was the challenge? Can you tell us what the challenge was, and also what was your father's role within that challenge?
Or for your guests or people who tune in who are educators who might be listening, my learning disability in the clinical diagnosis is a delay in the learning process. It's the ability to retain information.
Hmm.
So if someone were to give me a piece of paper to read, like a brochure like this, I would have to take a little bit more time to read it. It would take me 15.5 seconds to read that. It would take you 1.5 seconds to read that. Because what I'm doing is I'm
Oh,
putting information in, but am I retrieving it? Am I gonna retain the information and then be able to spit it back out to you? It's like
mm,
the difference when people say, "Are you listening?" and you listen. Are you listening and you hearing? Listening and hearing are two different things. I can hear what you're
right.
saying. It doesn't mean I'm listening. I'm understanding what you're saying. I can hear what you're saying. So reading comprehension is my challenge. So one of the things that my father did was he said, take a skill that you love. In my case, it was acting, theater. If you know that you have retention information, and how do you challenge that part of your brain, for your right brain? And I said, well, I don't know. I said, well, you have to retain a certain amount of dialogue. By the time the director gives you the script on Monday, you have to memorize, let's say, 70 pages by Friday. Just take a little bits and chunk of each day. So take 10 pages, another 10, another 10, another 10. What you do is you practice, it's called muscle memory.
Mm-hmm.
You're training your brain to because sometimes there's a play you're doing, they make a cut in a line cut or staging. You have to memorize all those things. And that's one of the things my dad had to learn from the Burnett show, because they got a script on Monday. By the time Friday came, they had like 10 more revisions. So he had to learn how to purge new information, bring in new, purge, bring in. And that was a skill that he taught me. So I figured, well, if I love acting and I love theater, because it also taught me within my learning disability, is that the learn of compromise, the learn of teamwork, working with other people who learn the theater, and that I couldn't engage these people just based on just who my father was. It was I had to do the job. They weren't going to care who my father was. If I couldn't do the job, you don't get the role. So if I auditioned for all the roles in school, I had to prove it. I was not going to get because who my father was.
Right. Exactly.
So there is a pro and con with being someone the son of someone famous. The other thing, you have everything handed to you. And I think the fact that my light disability is what it is, it was kind of a safeguard from having an ego, is because I had to work harder at things that others didn't, who didn't have my name, but things came easier for them educational wise. I got
Right.
based on status, not based on effort. And I don't think that's fair to somebody else who tried hard and did a great job. They should get that. They should get the leading role, not because of who my father is. Or
Right. But there's a lot of nepotism in Hollywood, right?
yes,
Is
there is.
there
Um,
is, right?
for good or bad. It's I mean it's um, by the end of the day, it's like whether it's a Sheen or it's a Sutherland, as good as those people were, is that they had to deliver the job. Their parents, no matter how good their parents were, the kid has to be, the kid has to deliver. So
Yes.
uh, people often say to me, it's amazing you stay so grounded. And I jokingly tell people, it's hard to have an ego when your father spends the majority of your life dressed up in women's clothing.
Right.
I mean,
Absolutely.
it's like Grace, it's like your father's a lawyer, your father's a doctor. What does your father do? Well, let's see. This week he's dressed up like a chicken and an Avon lady. Well, I'm sorry, it's hard to walk around with an ego, an air of, oh, I'm this great guy. I'm like, no, your dad dressed like a farm animal this week. I'm like, okay, well, hey, it pays the bills.
Yes.
So I think uh, as the advocate that he was for me, and that's another very interesting thing that he taught me when he would go to school for a teacher parent conference meeting. I was astounded to hear because I was in the other room or I was on the playground. And when he came in, it wasn't Harvey Korman, Mr. Ha guy. They got an informed, engaged advocate. That my father knew more about the American Disabilities Act than any teacher on the other side of that table because he had to
Wow.
be like this advocate. But he set the tone for me because he said, Chris, someday, if I can't do it for you, you have to be as articulate about your strengths and weaknesses as the other people who are in the field of education. And if they want to be taken seriously, they have to be able to engage their students and listen to what they have to say about what they need. And you've got to be able to engage them, not making them wrong, to say, I learn better if you get books on tape. I learn better visually. I learn better auditorily.
Hmm.
If my dad's not going to do it for me, who is going to do it for me? I had to do it for me. But
Right.
he set the bar for how I had to be my own best advocate.
Yes.
So
That's such a very, it's a useful skill in life.
it is.
You have to be, yes. As you know, I've been through the cancer journey,
I know.
and you have to be your own advocate because the healthcare system is a
Right.
mess.
It
And
is.
so, yeah, that experience really taught me how to stand up for myself, A, and B, how to be my own advocate. So I sympathize with you. I understand, um, what you had to go through, and at a very early age also. And I love that your father gave you that gift of be your own advocate, be independent. I'm not always going to be there for you.
Right.
Um,
Well, he laid two like credos to me, Grace, that have, I think that have helped me guide myself into where I am today. He said, A, the only time in life you ever fail is when you don't try.
yeah.
And B, you have to measure yourself based on what you're capable of achieving, not based on what other people think you should achieve. In other words, don't accelerate the maturation process to make your mother and I feel better. Go go at the pace that you have to go to in order to get to where you need to get to. Don't try to appease your mother and I by trying to achieve more, do more, because
Right.
then if you start measuring yourself based on me, you're never going to try harder. You're using me as a scapegoat, and he didn't want me to do
Ah,
that. And and I jokingly said to him one day, I said, Dad, it's hard to live up to somebody who spent most of his life acting like a complete idiot on television to earn a living. I don't exactly aspire to that.
right. That's funny.
I mean, I would tease him and say, Dad, how many love boats have you done? And like, don't tease me about love boat. That put you through college. So yeah,
what were
uh,
what were your fellow, speaking of like his characters, what was your favorite character that he
um,
ever has ever done on the Carol Burnett show?
I have two or three. Mother Marcus,
Yeah.
because from what I understand, that was very much an homage to his mother and his grandparents, his grandma. I mean, it's sort of like somewhere between Kate Smith and Lady Kazan. And the first time, if you ever watched the Burnett Show bloopers, there's Dick Clark has it on his show. It's the first time Carol opens the door and sees my dad in that drag, because during the rehearsal, they don't have a lot of time to rehearse, because you have to remember, Price is Right occupied stage 33 from Monday to Thursday, the most part. So they didn't get into the studio until Thursday. So they had Thursday and Fridays to dry block and do rehearsal for the Burnett Show. They did a lot of free recording for commercials and dance stuff, but they only had 2 days to really do the show. So Dad didn't want to get into the whole guard, the whole Mother Marcus guard. So the first time Carol opens the door and sees my dad, she shuts the door. He opens it and he's got his hands on her. He's got his hands on his own breast.
No, I can't.
So Mother Marcus is definitely there. Max from the Sunset Boulevard, the spinoff of Sunset Boulevard, is also my favorite. And I think anytime he did, Gone with the Wind.
Of course, what a classic.
And because the whole week, from what Carol and my dad told me, they had no idea, because it's so easy to do a caricature of the character of Vivian Lee or Clark Gable. So
Yes.
what Carol and my dad tried to do is capture the essence of what those characters were about without doing the caricature. And my dad just couldn't get the walk down. He couldn't get the face. And Bob Mackey put him in this certain pants that the pant cuff was longer than he used, so he had to walk a certain way. But it is so brilliantly written by Rick Hawkins and Liz Sage, who ironically, a lot of people don't know this. They were pages, people who sit people at theaters. They were pages at NBC, and Rick Hawkins, who wrote the majority of the piece, did his thesis on Gone with the Wind in college. So he wrote up this whole homage, and he sent it to Joe Hamilton, Carol's husband. And that's how Rick and his party partner got the job on the Burnett Show, based on that one spoof of Gone with the Wind. And the whole curtain rod was Bob Mackey's idea.
Yeah. It's so funny. Yeah.
Those are my favorite. But
those are your favorite. And I love the comments. Thank you guys for commenting,
yes,
Dave and Howard. I loved how Harvey tried his hardest not to laugh when performing with Tim Conway. His reactions were priceless. Oh my God. I just watched The Dentist, the sketch. Yeah. Oh my God. I mean, your father, he had tears. I mean, like he could not. I mean, Tim Conway just cracked him up.
He actually had a nail. He actually put a nail in his hand.
No.
So he wouldn't start laughing. That if he would stick his hand with the nail, so he would cause pain. So he would get his mind off of what Tim was doing. Because Tim and my dad had never worked together. Tim brought that sketch in. Tim had been on the Danny Kaye show where my dad started, but I don't think Danny and my father ever had worked together prior to that time. So that, like, one of the first sketches, I think the first sketch they ever did together. And I will say this, honestly, my father, who is a classically trained actor from Goodman Theater, he studied with Uta Hagen. My dad was a trained professional actor who was taught, always play the truth, don't play the comedy.
Right.
Acting as an actor, not as a comedian.
Exactly.
Even no matter how absurd it is, or how dry it is, or satirical it is, always play the truth of the moment for what the actor is doing. So he was really hard on himself. He didn't break up intentionally. Well, I think there's a fallacy that my dad broke up intentionally. He never did, because Tim never did the same show twice. They did a dress show at 5:30, then they would do an air show. And Joe and the producers would edit both shows together. So if something didn't work in the first show, they could edit and take something from the second show. So it looked like one well produced show. So,
Yes.
and as much as, and I think if there's a redeeming value in breaking up, I think it's because it made my dad Tim more relatable to the audience and to the crowd,
Mhm.
the public. They weren't saying, "Hey, look, we're doing Shakespeare here. We're doing comedy, and we're going to leave in the mistakes. If you see a boom, you see a boom. If you see a camera, you see a light. Okay, things are going to happen like that." But my dad never went out his way to break up. I mean, they would sometimes break up in the second show because they could get it. They already had it in the can, so they could try to play with each other, be silly with each other. But my dad really tried to very much stay on script because you're there, you're a comedian, you're an actress, you understand this. You're there to
Yeah.
serve the written word. The
Yes.
writer wrote that line for a specific reason, is to articulate a certain thought process to the audience. And if
Hmm.
you go off willy nilly and start improvising, it dilutes that moment and what you're trying to convey to the audience.
100%. And also the writer wrote it a certain way for a
Right,
reason.
right,
There's a rhythm to comedy. So if they get caught up in the oh, I'm gonna improvise here, it loses strength as a
right,
comedy piece, I think, right?
right. And the actor does not know how to respond because he's waiting for his cue. He doesn't
Right.
hear his cue, then he doesn't know how to react. And then the cameraman does not know where to do. Does the cameraman do a two shot? Where should the boom guy be with the boom? Is it a two shot now? Is it a one shot? Is it a master shot now? Because the cameramen have their cue cards on their camera based on what the dialogue is, and they know for what line is for them to cut to another camera. So Dave Powers, who directed the Burnett show, and he went on to direct Three's Company next door. A lot of people don't know this. Three's Company used to shoot next to the Burnett show.
Oh.
So during lunch or in the last season, Burnett show went off in '77, and supposedly Richard Kind, who played Larry Dallas, told me one time that he and John Ritter would go over at lunchtime and sit in the audience and watch the rehearsals of the Burnett show and drive my father crazy with questions.
Oh,
And
wow.
and Richard Klein said, "Your dad could not have been more of a mentor to us. He didn't seek it out, but we would just go to him and we would talk about timing and rhythm, and he always would take the time to talk to us." And
Oh.
and for Richard to say that to me, I really appreciate that because my dad didn't necessarily he didn't go out of his way. When people came to him and said, "Pick your brain about comedy," he would be very gracious and say, "Well, you talk about this, and you do this, and you do that, and you work on this." And um, and John Ritter turned out to be a very, very, very dear friend of my father's.
Oh.
And he was very, very, very a dear man.
He seemed to
Um,
be, yes. Yeah,
so
absolutely. And speaking of dear people, humans, in the book you say that Carol Burnett was so kind towards you when you were a child.
yeah, um, there was a guy his name was Ernie Anderson. He was the voice of ABC. This is the Love Boat. And he and his wife, Edwina, would have these gigantic events at their house in the valley, relays, parties, dance parties. So one time they had this relay thing, and I'm not the most accurate or physically capable person. I have hand-eye coordination, gross motor skills. I'm not, and we're having to climb a jungle gym and ride a bike around and around and doing all these things, and that's not my strong suit. So I was coming around the corner, head towards the finish line, and I came in third. It was a fun day. It wasn't about winning or losing, but I felt like I had laid down. I had let my team down, and I felt really kind of dejected. And out there, with her hands out there, is Carol Burnett with her arms out, giving me bucks. I said, "You're such a winner."
Oh.
And I relayed that message, that story to Carol's daughter Jody, and because Carol wrote the foreword to the book, and I wanted to convey to Jody what that moment meant to me in my lifetime. that
Wow.
somebody who saw that I needed some validation and love. And Jody never heard that story because I don't know if Jody was there that day. But I said, it's one of those seminal moments in your life that happen. You don't realize it until you're older. You realize what changed you. And I realized Carol was celebrating me, challenges and all. My dad celebrated me, challenges and all. So why can I do the same? Why can I celebrate myself? Challenges.
Yes.
If others could do it, why couldn't I do it? But I always struggled with self-esteem, self-confidence,
Hmm.
and I had to find a reason. Well, if others could celebrate me, I had to realize, well, why aren't I doing it? Because they saw something in me that I didn't see,
Right.
and so um, yeah, I tell Jody all the time. The people I have engaged in my life because of the Carol Burnett show is, how do I say it? It cannot be measured by an Emmy point, cannot be measured by a dollar sign or an Emmy nomination. The fruits of the Burnett show are boundless for me. People I got to engage because of that show
Hmm.
are mind blowing to me because you don't expect it. 56 years later, the same people who are all over that show I still connected with. Some of the dancers I talked to on Facebook, Randy Doty and Stan Mason, and we're all still a family. Once you're part of the Burnett family, you're a Burnett member for the rest of your life. And on my website, on my Dr. My Ear website on Facebook, I do that. I honor the Burnett Show. I honor pulp culture. I honor dancers and people that I loved and I adored as people because
Yeah.
far from who they were as artists, if they were good people, I don't care how good they were as artists. I care about who they were as people.
Yes.
Because I had the distinction of being around people like Ken Berry, Betty White. I got
Oh,
to be around Joe Williams, a great jazz singer. I got to be around some incredibly Hal Linden, who's one of my favorite people, or Peter
wow.
Marshall, and or Mike O'Connor from Mannix. I got to know these people as people, and they would come to my dad's golf tournament that we used to have in Palm Springs for children with learning disabilities. The school was called the Marian Frostig School for Early Education in Pasadena, or it's Pasadena now. And they would come back every year to see my growth. And I had these people who I saw on television come up to me and giving me hugs and
Hmm.
and love and hugs. And I'm like, this is surreal. These are people I grew up with. And
Right.
they're honoring me, they're acknowledging me. I'm like, what did I do to deserve this? It's because I keep on persevering through my struggles. And,
Yes.
and um, but getting to know these people as human beings, it just made me love them as performers even more because there was something behind the brand that mattered to me. That's why when I network for performers, Grace, like yourself, if I care about the person behind the brand, it's easier to sell the brand.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's what I love about you. When we became friends, you looked at me as the human being, as the person that I am, besides the talent or whatever, you care about the human relationships.
Yes, I
And
do.
not a lot of people in this industry care about that.
No, they
As
don't.
you know, it's a lot of what can you do for me, what can I do. But you are on a whole different level. And do you think that your father had something to do with the fact that you look at the person and not at the celebrity or status or how was he like that also? Did he look at the person first?
I've had more people say to me, because I engaged your father 10 years ago, 15 years ago, after a show with Tim or at a golf tournament. And your father would take time to with his arms folded and sit there and talk to me for 15, 20 minutes with a Diet Coke in my hand and just start talking and ask me how my life was doing. It was never about him. It was about he engaged people. He wanted to get to know them as human beings. If you talk, you couldn't talk shop with my father, first of all. If you're
Mm-hmm.
at home or you're out in the public, it was about you. It was not about, oh, let's analyze with the Burnett show. Why did you laugh at this moment? Or what was like working with Mel Brooks?
Yeah.
You couldn't do that with my father, or at home or in public. It was
I
always
love
about
that
when he was in
about
public,
the other person. Yeah.
right? He was always Harvey, the father, or
Yes.
and he was that way in public. And so for people who I've engaged on Facebook for their family member who I like Jack Klugman, Quincy.
Mm-hmm.
I engaged Jack Klugman a couple of times at Hollywood Squares, and I had a speech impediment. I had a learning disability. But Jack always treated me like I was $1,000,000, so I understood that how important it was to talk to somebody as a human being. And it was the anniversary of Jack Klugman just passed, I think. And I reached out to Adam Klugman, Jack's son, on Facebook,
Yeah.
and I told him the story about what Jack meant to me. And Adam said, Chris, I never heard that story, but I gotta tell you, every time your father engaged me, he gave me a hug. He
Oh,
would ask me how I was doing. So for you to tell me my father did the same thing for you, it meant everything to Adam. Because what his father did for me was like what Carol did for me, is this validation that you're a whole person, that whatever challenges you might have, I saw a human being before I saw a symbol of a social status, or a symbol of a social cause, that you're a human being first.
I love
And
that.
anytime I saw Jack, hey Chris, how you doing? How's school? I'm looking around like, is he talking to me? No,
Right.
Chris, whether he knew that my father was Harvey, I don't know if he knew that. It didn't seem to matter to him. He was always, hi
Right.
Chris, how are you? How are you? So when I relayed that story to Adam, he said, well, no, I'm glad you said that, because your father did the same thing to me. He always treated me with respect. Whether he knew I was Jack's son, it was always, hi, Adam, how are you? I'm fine. How you doing? You want to donate? So things like that um, make me appreciate the person more
Mm-hmm.
than what they did on stage. They can win 20,000 Emmys, but if they're not a good person, I don't care how many Emmys you win. So,
No,
uh,
totally. I agree 100%. And it's very unusual for an actor of his caliber to really care about other people, because I've been around, character actors, and I even dated one, and it's all about them. So what you're
yeah,
saying is like, I'm just like blown away, because it gives me hope. That there are people like that in the world. Because in the business, it's like it's all about me, 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 me. But your dad was all about other people, and I just love that.
I'm glad you said that, because
That's a
I'm
beautiful
glad,
thing.
glad you took
Yes,
that from the book.
yes, yes. Oh,
Um,
yeah. I was paying attention. I was reading it, and I highlighted my favorite parts. So here, old Ted, if you can bring that question up, mystery man. My mystery man is the guy under us. We're not gonna call him by his name. He doesn't want to. He wants to remain a mystery.
oh,
So, how did
okay.
his dad develop a relationship with Mel Brooks? He was in many of his movies.
Okay. Well, it turns out if you go by the first one, Blazing Saddles, Anne Bancroft, his Academy Award winning wife, says to Mel, and Mel told me this at my dad's memorial.
Hmm.
Ed says you should use the guy from the Burnett show. Now, the story goes he had offered the role originally. It was called Black Bart. He originally offered the role of Hedley Lamar to Gene Wilder. Gene said, "I'm not
Oh,
good for that role," but it was called Black Bart then. He claims that the second person who he offered it was to Carl Reiner, and Carl said that's not true.
huh.
So we're at my dad's memorial, and I got him cornered in the corner of my dad's house, and I'm asking him all this question. Like, well, how did you come to know about my dad? It's like, because my wife, my Academy Award-winning wife, Anne Bancroft, said, "Why don't you use the guy from the Burnett show?" Now, my dad takes his agent. They go over to Warner Brothers. They meet with Mel. Mel starts acting out the whole movie, and my dad is so engaged by Mel because he's a 2,000-year-old man. So my dad had such reverential love for Mel. I
Yes.
can't keep up with this guy. He's doing the whole movie in front of me. So the first day was the paddle scene, and they had never worked together. And you thought, well, you know what? You don't know what rhythms different comedians are going to have, actors are going to have with the other person, if it's going to meld, because they had never worked together. And Carl and Mel had this iconic relationship. So
Yes.
this is the first date, and Mel and my dad just meshed. And I don't. It's like lightning in a bottle. You can't explain it. You can't harness it. You either it's there or it's not. Is that my dad and Mel just worked great together. They could pick up on each other's rhythm. They knew not to upstage the other one, and it would just become. They had such simpatico, and he did History of the World Part One, High Anxiety, and Dracula Dead and Loving It together. They did 4 movies together, and I think High Anxiety is still people will kill me for this, but the scene in High Anxiety where he does the werewolf,
Yeah.
and he puts teeth in his mouth, and he scares that other guy, making him feel like a werewolf, is still one of my favorite scenes of all time in My Father's. It's
Yes.
the happiest part of who my father is. And I just, and I have gotten to speak to Mel over this many times over the years. And Mel has always said, there was no one better than your father. And for Mel to say that,
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
he loved Gene, he loved my dad, he loved Madeline Kahn, because when Mel trusted you, he let you go. He trusted that
Hmm.
you're going to very strongly what you have to offer that scene because he knew that they were going to be so good. And Mel knew how to get out of the way and let them be good and do what they did right. And I often said to Mel, it's like, you and Carol probably changed the landscape of my father's career. Without the Burnett show and Flynn Sales, I don't know what my dad's career would have been defined by. Because he went to Goodman Theater hoping he was going to be the next Olivier. And most people don't know this. Olivier was in the audience one night. And
Wow.
one night, Olivier decided to be in the audience. My dad stripped off his pants and he was in his underwear. And it was supposed to be breakaway underwear. It was supposed to have little hearts and flowers on it. But he didn't make the change between the first show and the second show. So when he took off his pants, he was in his own underwear. And the camera's on Lawrence Olivier. He's going, "What's so funny?" It's like, I don't think he realizes my dad just basically flashed 20 million Americans and Lawrence Olivier. So
Oh my God.
the worst part of that is no one knew that Lawrence Olivier was going to be in the audience that night. CBS didn't get a heads up. Nobody had a heads up. So they tell Carol, Lawrence Olivier is in the audience. And my dad said, "Look, after that sketch, I don't want to see anybody. I'm just going to go in the toilet and hang myself. That just, I can't meet my idol after that." So
Right.
Lawrence Olivier came backstage and they had to peel my father off the carpet because this was his idol. And Lawrence was like, "I've been watching you for years, Harvey. You're one of my favorite performers." And my dad couldn't grasp that his idol knew who he was.
Wow.
And one of the things that you appreciate as a performer, Grace, is that we have
Hmm.
the fallacy in this business. We can assume everybody does what everybody else can do in the business. Because there's a funny story about that. Joanne Woodward did an episode of Mama's Family, Carol Burnett show, playing Eunice's
Yeah.
best friend. Now, Paul Newman is in the booth with Joe Hamilton, the producer, the executive producer, and the cameraman, and the camera prep. And Paul's like, "I can't believe you guys do this twice a night in front of a live audience. I could never do sketch comedy. I could never do live audience." And everybody's looked at him like, "You're Paul Newman. You can do it all." That's an assumption we make in this business. That most
Right.
performers, he couldn't grasp that his wife Joanne was doing a live sketch variety show twice in one night with cuts, with 3 cameras, because actors are used to doing 3 or 4 lines and then they reshoot and they reshoot and they reshoot. So they have time, but they have to memorize throughout the week. They have to memorize their portion of their script. And Paul Newman was sitting there sweating profusely in the booth, like, "I can't believe you guys do this every week. I couldn't do this every week." And when he went backstage, Paul was like, "Harvey and Carol, I can't believe you guys do this every week. I could never do this." And they're all looking at him like, you're Paul Newman, you could do it all. And that's just not true. Cary
Right.
Grant had dinner and lunch with my father and Tim a couple of times. And Cary Grant said to my father, we're two of the best straight men in the business. My dad said, I don't consider you a straight man. I said, well, we are. And my dad's like, Cary Grant, I said, Cary, I would never put you in the same I would never put myself in the same category as Cary Grant. And Cary's like, Harvey, I could never do what you do on the Burnett show.
Exactly.
So
Absolutely.
It's funny that we assume that every performer
Can do it all because they're
no,
actors or whatever. Yes. Like people think, oh, I can do stand-up comedy. It's a whole different animal
right,
to do
right,
stand-up comedy from being an actor, sketch comedy
right,
actor, improv actor. I mean, they're all different things. Some people can do 2 or 3 of them. Some people can do them
right.
all, but not everyone can do it all in the
No,
comedy world.
you can't.
Absolutely.
So
They're all like different animals.
they are. And
100%. Can you bring up the next question from Holly Dizzle, please, Mystery Man? Chris, thank you. Chris, do you keep in contact with Tim Conway Jr.?
I don't. I know he has his own radio show. I don't listen to a lot of radio. I periodically see him on social media, although I'm on social media very much, like TikTok or Instagram. I try to limit myself to be on those things too much because I'm on LinkedIn already. I'm on Facebook enough. And I don't want to spend my whole day on those.
It's very time consuming. I'm telling you. And I know from experience, it can just take your time, like hours and hours.
But his show's funny. I mean, I'm not into it, but
So do you,
yeah, I can only spend so much time on the radio or on the internet
yeah,
before I go stir crazy. Just trying to maintain my Harvey Korman page, just maintaining just my everyday life. Married and having a child, and so you have to weigh the priorities, and you can't let me
absolutely.
bog down with the social media. There's like a time of the day I can do my networking. There's time to be just a father and husband. Sometimes they
Yeah,
bore. Sometimes they bore. And first has to say you got to shut it off now.
absolutely. Well, guess what? Mystery Man put a collage of pictures from your book. So he's going to show
Okay.
us the pictures and then we're going to discuss them.
Oh my God!
Uh
Wow, I actually have hair.
huh.
Good
You
heat.
still do. You have great hair.
I
What are you
love them.
talking about? So tell us a little bit about these pictures.
Well, the bottom one is with my son Scott. We were at a performance my dad had up in San Diego with Tim Conway, and Scott had never seen my dad perform. And my dad wanted to make sure Scott saw my dad perform before he passed.
Oh,
And we were in the audience, and Scott turned to somebody and said, "Don't worry, Harvey Korman will be back on stage. He'll be fine. You'll be fine. He'll be back." And just the joy of seeing my dad, and my dad seeing Scott, just was one of the best moments my wife and I ever had. But the lady, the stage manager, she said, "Mr. Korman, this is not really a show for children." I said, "Well, there's no swearing involved unless my dad goes off script. Then we're all in trouble." I said, "But this is his grandson, and my dad wanted Scott to see his grandfather perform," and she couldn't argue after that. So
of course.
the other
Absolutely.
one, the top one, the shuffleboard, uh, we were in Florida with some relatives, and my dad got to show off his great legs and my knobby knees. And then the middle one, my dad in the Army, or I'm sorry, the Navy. And the other one where my dad's trying to explain golf to me.
So cute. You look so cute there. Oh my God.
Oh,
Like
thank you.
very focused. Like, how do I do this?
Yes, what the hell what's the club? Like, what is this thing?
Exactly. So cute.
And that's when I really had red hair. Oh my God. Okay, let's see. The middle one is at the golf tournament. with my dad. Looks like he shot the drapes at Comfort Inn. Uh,
Oh my God.
the, the left one with him, with my face kind of skewed with the buck teeth. Where I don't know where we're at.
On the one on the
Uh,
left?
yeah, the bottom one with my dad's wearing the big glasses. Uh, he seemed to be dining out a lot. The other one on the other side with his head on my shoulder with the cap on, we're bowling somewhere. And then the bottom one is we're at a golf tournament, and the golf committee both gave my dad and I jackets with our name on it. And the middle one is William Amundsen, who was the owner of Home Savings and Loan and the Amundsen Theater that is in Los Angeles. He
Oh,
is the
yes.
president and the owner of the Amundsen Foundation.
Nice. Nice. Do we have some more mystery men?
Oh
Oh, yes,
wow.
we do. Oh,
Okay.
yeah. I screenshot everything from your book.
Okay.
So,
Well, let's see. The middle
yes.
one is obviously my dad and Scott as a baby.
Oh,
The other one, the other side is my dad, my sister, and I at my graduation. The bottom one is Trish and I and Scott. The other one is my stepfather, George. Now, people who don't recognize George DiCenzo, he's the one that played Vincent Bugliosi in Helter Skelter about Manson.
okay.
And he's the one that hits Michael J. Fox with the car in Back to the Future 1.
Oh, so he was your stepdad. Did your
My
stepdad
stepfather,
and your
he and my stepfather and my dad were very good friends, actually. And
yes,
they
that's
were
yeah.
exceptional men who always put my well-being ahead of whatever ego. Because during the week, Grace, I live with George and my mom, and on the weekend I live with my father.
Oh,
And there was always a learned boundary line that when I was in George's house, it was George's rules. Like if there's a curfew, and let's say my dad was doing the Tonight Show, my dad would call up and say, George, George got his homework done? Did you get his chores done? Yes, he did. Fine, he goes. But he's always adhered to the other rules of the other parent. And George never overstepped his boundary as a stepfather, and my father never overstepped George's rules in his house. And I was fortunate to have two exceptional father figures in my life. And they did one movie together called Long Shot about horse racing. And George played a mobster who used to snort. And they could not get to this one scene together. And to see my dad and George interact together was just incredible. And of course, what do George and Dad do love best? They love to eat. So the one picture is Dad and George eating. So what else do Jews and Italians do but they eat? A lot.
nice. Did your father cook well? Was he a good cook?
Actually, it was actually a pretty good. He liked steaks and potatoes. George was a gourmet cook.
Oh, wow.
And
Nice. What a great
yes, well,
stepdad.
yes,
Wow.
for a couple of years there, I was the Hindenburg with ears.
Oh my God. I
Because
don't blame you.
George would make ziti. He would make plates of it. He would put them in containers and put them in the freezer. So anytime my mom and George would go out, my mom was like, George, you're going to get him really fat. I said, Donna, he's 18 years old. He'll burn it off just walking to his bedroom.
Exactly.
So, but yeah, George and my dad were very, very dear friends. And actually, my dad is the one suggested George for the role in the movie. And because we shared Christmases together. And there's always a respect they had for each other, and they had for me, and they always pushed me never to use both of them were hard on me in the sense I don't mean hard in a mean way, hard
Yes.
on me in the sense that it was tough love. Like they pushed me to go farther and go longer in my life and never give up on myself and not ever use VLD as a crutch. And they both were very, very strong men in my life. And I was very fortunate to have them in my life.
That is amazing. Not many people get to have two awesome dads.
No, they don't. I was blessed to have two.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. That's amazing. And what how did your father and George do you think help you reach your own state of grace, i.e., your ideal state of being?
Well, I think in case when I was with George in the household, It was like, let him fall down and make mistakes. Let him learn life skills. Let him have, teach him how to do laundry. Teach him how to be more self-reliant. Don't always expect mom and dad to do everything. So when I got to college, I was like, I was ahead of the game. I learned how to sort my laundry. I knew how to go shopping, and if I was in an apartment with my other roommate, I learned about coupons. I learned about independent living skills because again, like my dad with my LD about advocacy, George was that George was the same way with me about my living and and dietary issues and hygiene and things like that. And because someday you're going to go away to college and your parents aren't going to be there with you, you have to learn how to compromise. You have to get along with a roommate. You got to learn how to wash the tub and scrub things. And someday you're not going to have a maid to do it.
Yeah.
So both my dad really kind of pushed me to like you had to eventually become your own man. You had to do your own laundry. You had to learn how to shop for groceries. You had to, you just can't come home and sit on the couch and watch football and baseball games and drink beer.
Yes.
You have to be a responsible adult.
Yes. So your father basically, I think, not only was incredibly supportive towards you, but he also taught you how to be independent.
Both of them
Which,
were.
yes, which, and how did that help you reach your ideal state of being? First of all, what is your ideal state of being?
I think about being an exceptional father and husband. I
I
think
love that.
because I didn't think I was ever going to get married and have a child because I always felt like I had to spend most of my days, my life, just trying to get through the day without feeling bad enough about myself. But the
Yes.
idea that if I was going to project outward, that I deserved the kind of love that I was seeking. And
Hmm.
my dad said, and I think George said this to me, when you're ready to project the idea that you're ready to receive that kind of love, the right
Yes.
person will receive you. Not until you validate yourself by loving yourself are you going to
Yes.
project that you want to be loved. So
Yes.
I had to learn that. I didn't marry until I was much older, and Trish and I bonded very carefully in that we were best friends first,
Yes.
and
That's so important.
she is my best friend, and there's nothing we can't say to each other. And she pushes me. This might seem like a trite, unimportant thing. I'm not the most mechanically inclined human being in the world. My wife is far more good at that. And we just bought a PlayStation 5. And again, me and wires don't like each other.
Yeah.
And because you have to take one plug in and you have to take another plug out and you have to put the TV set and you got black wires everywhere. I'm like, oh my God. It's like
Mhm.
a degree from MIT I need an MIT degree just to fix the toilet, let alone, work the toaster. And
Yeah.
she and my wife like my father, my dad said, look, if I do this for you, you're never going to learn the confidence that you could have in yourself. So
Hmm.
I took the stuff out of the box. I took the stuff into the other room. I looked at the directions. I said, okay, this black cord goes in here. And I was very methodical because I had watched her do things. And I watched
Yes.
her do it. I said, all right, this wire makes sense to go into this box, and this box goes into this slot. And it must have taken me like 25 minutes to do it. I don't know, maybe. And I was so elated with myself, I just like screamed out, I can't believe, Trish, I did it. And it was those small victories in your life that you don't think
Yes.
enough about until it happens. And
Yes.
I had such a feeling of pride that I did it because my wife believed in me that I could do it. And I and it just validation that, I married the greatest woman ever.
Oh, that's
That
amazing.
me where I didn't sometimes I don't believe in me. And she sees something in me that I don't see. And she holds me up on high regard. And she does not let me use my LD like my dad and George. Does not let me use the LD as a crutch.
Absolutely. Well, I think the people in your life, it's as I'm listening to you, have taught you how to love yourself first, because that's I always say that, preach that, love yourself first, and the rest will follow. But because how can you love someone else if you don't love yourself?
Right.
It's you don't know what love is until you love yourself, and that's you believe in yourself, but we also need those people in our life that will believe in us and love us also, because it makes our life better. So you have reached your state of grace basically, and you're still in it, and I love that. That's a beautiful thing. And I can't imagine your wife kinder than you, but no, 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 you're like the kindest person I know. So
She's the
I don't
kindest
know
person, she's the
how
kindest
how
person
is
I
that
know.
possible.
My wife is the kindest, greatest hearted woman I've ever met in my life.
Oh, that is,
Bar
oh,
none.
what a beautiful thing that you say that about your wife. So
Oh,
many
she
men
is.
complain about their wives, and you're like just totally crazy in love with her. And just
I
that gives
am.
me hope. That gives me hope. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you
Well,
for that.
the picture you see is we're in Pasadena, and my dad's directing Mama's Family. He directed the first two seasons of Mama's Family, and we're directing the Mama Becomes Mayor episode. And it is about 86 degrees out, so I can't figure out why we're wearing heavy jackets. I guess we had a death wish that day. Uh, but he directed the first two episodes
Uh-huh.
of, and there's an episode of Mama's Family that people will watch on YouTube. It's called Harper versus Harper, and Naomi and Mama sue each other over a rug. I'll try to make the story short. And so he put me in as an extra. So I'm in this shirt that looks like a Disney film exploded. It had
Mm.
every color imaginable. And he's done our, we're in Raytown, Kansas. So he said, try to look hickish and kind of look dumb. I said, well, that won't be hard for us.
Hmm.
He said, shut up. I said, try to go sit in the pew behind Ken Berry. And if you see the red light is on, then you know the camera's on you. So try to look amused, try to look engaged in what was going on in the courtroom. So they did the first scene. My dad's in the booth.
Yes.
He comes walking up towards the stage. I don't know what possessed me to blurt this out. I said out in front of Rue, in front of Ken Berry and George. Oh my God, here comes the freaking director with notes. And everybody started laughing. And my dad came up on the stage and said, what's so funny? It's like, Chris just made a smart comment about you. It's like, oh God, here comes the freaking director. And my dad just looked at me and said, you know, you can walk home today if you like.
Right.
I'm like, okay. I said nothing for the rest of the day to him. I said, I mean, in a mean spirited way. But Dickie just kind of like said, it was funny, Harvey, don't get on Chris. It's like, well, no, I love Chris, but like you said, if you think he's a smart ass comment like that, he's walking home today. And he just kind of winked at me and smiled. But I'll tell you, being around Ken Berry, being around Vicki Lawrence, being around Betty White, being around Carol,
Wow.
for those 2 years that he directed was one of the best parts of my childhood because I also had friends over at the Young and the Restless and stage crew members. But to be around Betty, to be around my dad, to be around Betty, um,
Amazing.
watch their timing, to watch their love for each other, their respect for each other. Because my dad had directed Betty White in a play in 1954 in Chicago. And I didn't know they knew each other for that long. And they had done a Faulty Towers spoof called Snavely in '77. And this is right around the time, Betty was 97. This was 2 years before she had passed.
Wow.
And I reached out to her agent, Jeff Whitegate. And I said, Jeff, did Betty ever see the pilot for Snavely? It's like, what's Snavely? I said, they did this pilot for this homage to Faulty Towers that Betty and my dad was on. Just like, I'll have to ask Betty about it, but let me ask her. And I didn't want to bother her because she was 97 years old and she had all these demands put on her.
Yes.
So this was during COVID, I guess. And he said, oh, let me get back to you. So a couple of weeks later, he said, oh, Betty would like a copy of it. Let me send it to you, Jeff. And I relayed the story about how when I was in the hospital I had reconstructed jaw surgery when I was 14. They
Wow.
break my jaw because I didn't have a jaw. And they had to move my teeth back. They had to put my jaw back. They had to cut teeth. They had to cut jaw. So I now,
Wow, that's a lot.
so, so I
Yeah.
relayed this story to Jeff. I said, when I got back to the hospital room, there were flowers, there was balloons, there was a picture from Betty. Two Chris loved Betty White, and flowers and balloons. But what I remember most was the first time I came back to the Mama's Family set after being away for 2 months. They had to wire my mouth shut for 3 months. I had to eat everything through a turkey baster, and I was drinking these milkshakes to get my strength up. And I came back to the set, and it was the first show that I came back. It was Dorothy's character meets her ex-husband, played by Jerry Reed, the singer, the country singer.
Yeah.
And I came back to the stage, and the first person who greeted me in the audience was Betty. And then Ken Berry came down, and then Carol came down, and the whole crew came down. And it was truly, and I hate to say this, and I sound modeling and sound metal because we both know what the business can be like. It's more business than show. Crew members were visiting me in the hospital.
Oh.
Joey Hamilton came over to my house in Santa Monica to see if I was okay. I I really got that the production was really truly a family because everybody made me feel like I was part of the crew. And I knew I was because I was Harvey's son. But the crew members came to my hospital room to visit me after the show. And I had flowers and balloons all over from Vicky, from Carol, from Betty White, all these people.
Oh.
And um, it was surreal. And to come back to the stage and everyone make me feel like I was part of the family again. And that was one of my cherished moments in my life. And so I recall that story to Jeff. So he told Betty, it's like, he came back a couple of days later and said, Chris, I wanted to tell you how much Betty loves you too, and how much she adores you, and how much she adored your father, and all the great memories on Mama's Family and Snavely. And she's wanted to tell you she cherishes you too. And that meant everything to me.
Yes.
Because if you met Betty White, let me tell you, don't let the little grandma character fool you.
Right. Tell us. Tell us. Give us the tea on Betty White.
Betty could swear like a sailor.
I love it. Yes. That's my kind
She,
of girl.
she was more Sue Ann Nivens than she was Rose on any
Yes.
given day. And she could give as good as you took. I mean, you could break her balls, but she could break them right back at you. And
I
if my
love
dad
that.
said something to her about a stage something or reading, she could
Yeah.
she could bust my dad's gut. But always in fun, always in love.
Yes.
And that's the kind of person because Betty didn't take herself seriously. I
Oh,
mean,
you could tell. Yeah. You could totally tell.
and but
How
you
about
know,
how about Lucy? Have you ever met Lucy?
actually, I have a baby spoon from Lucy. This is to Chris Love Lucy, and we're in.
Oh, that's so
Okay,
nice.
all right, you know this
I'm so
area.
sorry. I'm
There's
gonna check my eyelash because I think it's messed up. Okay, there.
a.
Sorry.
Okay. But you appreciate the
A little
president.
moment of vanity.
Okay, all right. Well, I have mine too. So,
Yeah,
uh,
it's a little messed up. I don't know what's going on. It's one of
okay.
those magnetic ones. But anyway,
Oh,
it's a droopy
you
one. But
okay?
yeah, I'm good. I'm good.
So, do you know where the Beverly Hilton is, right?
Yes, on Sunset.
There was a place called Trader Vic's, and there was a Bullock's or a May Company on the corner.
Okay.
At least there used to be. So one day in '75 or '76, my dad and I and my sister are walking through the China department at Bullock's. Marie and I are behind my dad. We hear, "Oh my God, Lucy, how are you?" I'm like, "Oh my God." We turn around, there's my dad, and Lucy's in a mink stole, holding a pussycat, wearing pussycat sunglasses with a wig on, and we're in the China department, and we're like, "Oh my God, it's Lucy." And my dad and Lucy are hugging, and how are you? This is my son Chris, and this is my daughter Maria. And we're like staring at her. We can't believe it. And
Right.
she said, "Oh, did you ever get my baby spoon?" I'm like, "What? What baby spoon?" Supposedly, she had given my mom a baby spoon when she had me. And it says to Chris, love Lucy.
Oh,
And I had to say this outside of Carol and Mel, Lucy probably had as much to do with my father's success as anybody. Because when my dad came out in '60 with my mother, my mom was a charm school teacher and ad model. And my dad was making his rounds. Back then, there was only 3 channels.
yeah.
So got used to knowing the right casting people to hit on for jobs. And back then, you only had a certain amount of channels, like Screen Gems or certain production companies. We got the rounds, so people after a while go, "Oh, I remember him." So before you know it, he had done Four Munsters, he'd done Danny Kaye, he'd done Jack Benny, he did Perry Mason. But Lucy saw him. They'd done a Danny Kaye together, and if you were really loyal to Lucy, she was really loyal to you. I'll tell you.
Hmm.
And she told Carol supposedly when Burnett show went on the air, they didn't know if it was going to be mid-season replacement or not, or if it was going to go. Lucy said to Carol, "If you don't use Harvey, I'll use Harvey because he's one of the best character actors, comedians in the business."
Yes.
So my dad did 3 or 4 Lucys, but how my dad got Burnett was my dad was staging the summer show for the Steve Allen group in
Yeah.
'67. The Louis Nye, Tom Poston, Ruth Buzzy, John Weiner, and he was just staging the sketches for him. And he was walking out of his car. If you've ever been to CBS, you go into the artist entrance, which they renamed the Carol Burnett artist entrance.
Okay.
I think they named the toilet after my father, but you can't have everything. So Carol was walking out. My dad was walking out. She'd seen him on Danny Kaye. She said, "Look, I need my own Carl Reiner to my Danny Kaye," because she'd been the second banana on the Gary Moore show. But she says, "I need my own day. I need my own Carl Reiner." They didn't know if the show was going to go, and Danny Kaye was just about to be canceled. And there
Yes.
was some kind of stupid rule phrase back then is they didn't like the idea of taking one actor off of one show and putting him on another show. I don't know why studios
Yes.
have that problem. So she supposedly threw my father over a hood of a car and said, "You have to do her show. You have to do her show." But dad said he was not. I was born in May of that year, so he was looking for his next job. So my dad supposedly went home and said, "I got another job, Donna." It's like, "How is that?" It's like, "Well, Carol molested me in the parking lot at CVS, and I have an indent of a car from Michigan in my ass." And she and I'll tell you why the Burnett show worked. She
Tell
said
me.
after one rehearsal, Grace, she said,
Mhm.
"I don't care if the show happens or not. Let's just love each other and let's respect each other." Because you have to remember, Lyle and Vicky were novices. They weren't big names. Carol and my dad were the 2 biggest names, if you want to think about it, on the show.
Yes. Yes.
And 10 years later, it's one of the great classic shows of television. But it started with Carol. Is we're going to have fun. We're not doing we're not doing Othello. We're doing sketch comedy. Let's just have
Right.
fun, and the audience will pick up on that fun.
100%. Yes.
So
Absolutely.
I think it's the 10 best years of my dad's life,
Yes.
creatively speaking, and I think his work with Mel is some of his best work. And for cartoon people who don't know this, he was the voice of the Great Gazoo on the Flintstones.
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
So my legacy is that he's a Green Martian and a Jewish Yinta. That's my legacy, for what it's worth.
Hey, it could be worse.
It could be worse, yes. Um,
Definitely. And we have a question actually
sure.
for you, Chris.
Okay.
Holly Dizzle, can you bring it up, Mystery Man? Thank you. Chris, please tell us about euphoric tendencies and that experience.
Your Four Tendencies was written and produced, are being written and produced by 2 of my dearest friends, Jonathan and Tanya Martin in Maryland. And it's about a very tongue-in-cheek type of topic. It's about there's these groups out there in the country called they're spanking parties. People are spanking each other on the butt, and that's not the core genesis of the movie. It's about the sexual liberation, in that we had to come to terms with the fact that we're gay, we're straight, we're bi, whatever. Is that we have
Yeah,
to accept each other on the merits of that's who we are. We're not defined by our sexuality. We have to
absolutely.
respect the fact that people have certain sexual desires. It does not make us bad or make us lewd or bad or
Means
wrong.
nothing.
Right.
Absolutely.
It's who we are. And the
Yeah.
movie is about this young woman who is a writer, and she experiences with her boyfriend who is very much in the corporate world, and he's so worried about what everyone's going to think if he shares his girlfriend with another woman, and he's so tight about that idea, and they break up, and because she might have a lesbian relationship, and the movie is basically about the sexual orientation and about sexual liberation, and about how we just need to accept each other for who we are, and our
Hmm.
sexual orientation might be different than everybody else's. It doesn't make us bad or wrong; it just makes us different. So I'm the executive producer on that.
Nice.
Um, you
Nice.
know,
How was that experience? Was it fun to, did you
well,
go on set or,
well, the toughest part is you have to find a studio.
yeah.
The one that the easier thing is that I'm finding with trying to package writer is that if you remember Dancing with Wolves was a book first and a movie
Yeah.
second. So it's easier to get an adaptation on a book for a movie than try to go straight for a movie. So
Yeah.
Tanya is trying to write the book, Your Four Tendencies, and then see if we can shop it with a literary agent. So we're in that process now. And I do have a literary agent with a sovereign talent agency in Los Angeles because I'm working
Hmm.
on the second book with my partner Jonathan Martin, who's co-executive producer on Euphoric, and we're writing a great book.
Nice.
Um,
Can you tell us what the book is about?
yeah,
Just,
we're celebrating the great straight men of comedy, like Bud Abbott and my father and Carl Reiner, and how has the straight man role evolved from burlesque to the Catskills to comedy, sketch
right.
comedy. So we're writing about that. We're starting at the evolution of how the British invasion of comedy affected comedy, and how Peter Cook and Dudley Moore and some other great British comedy duos, and what is the
Yes.
genesis of the straight man and how it has evolved, how it is used in different formats. So we're writing about that.
Awesome. That sounds amazing. I want to read
Yeah.
that book.
I'll make sure I get a copy for you, for sure.
Thank you. Thank you. And okay, so now you help actors as a producer and PR person. You took acting at some point in your life, and your father gave you some advice on being an actor. And if there are any aspiring actors or actors listening right now, what would your father's advice be to them, and what would your advice be to them?
Well, there's that old saying you hear all the time, Grace. What did I do not to get this role? You talked yourself out of the
Yeah.
audition. Obviously, your agent sent you out on that audition for a reason. He thought you could get it because you thought you were right
Yes.
for the role. So what does the actor do? They are their own worst enemy. They start
Yeah.
guessing themselves. They're second guessing their instincts as an actor. And my dad would basically say, just go out there and blow it out. What do you have to lose? All they're looking for, that whole thing is, well, I don't know what they're looking for. Neither do they. They don't
Right.
know until they hear it or they see it. They see something new. I said, they've not seen all day long. They just want to know, A, do you trust your instincts? B, are you willing to fail in an audition? If you're not willing to fail, how are you going to succeed? I mean, they just want to know that you can trust your instincts. It's
Yes.
better to try something than nothing at all, because the producer and the casting director want you to try something so they can see that what kind of chemistry you have with other actors, so they can pair you with certain people. But if you
Yeah.
go in there and think, I'm not going to get this, well, why do you go?
Right, exactly. Absolutely.
So,
You just, yeah, you already have the no. Go for the
right.
yes.
So my dad would just say, go blow it out. And You know what? This might sound maudlin or funny, but one no can turn into 20 yeses by how you respond to the no. Because remember this, back in the day when there was 3 channels, yes, you made your rounds with the casting people. And if one actor stuck out with them, they would keep on getting work and work and work. It's
Yes.
because they were gracious for the opportunity to work, and it stuck in the casting director's head, oh, he's really good. But it's how they comported themselves after the audition. And you can talk yourself right out of this business by acting petty or small or, oh, you can get the role, thanks a lot, bye, and then walk out. And like, that's not going to endear you to the next people that you cast with. Because remember, if you look at Hulu, you look at Netflix, they audition year round now. It's no longer a
Right.
school year. It used to be September to May. My dad used to get on in May. We had summers to ourselves. The year would end in May, early June. We had June, July, August, September, and it was school year, and then the redemption went back into production. So we had that
Yeah.
time. Now auditioning is year round. So you don't get a lapse. There is no lapse. You're auditioning maybe 3, 4, 5 times a day. So I tell actors, to simply say, hey, thank you for the opportunity to audition. I hope I get a chance to audition for you again, maybe down the road. And hand them the side with the script. Say, thank you. I hope I get a chance to see you guys again. Thank you for this opportunity. That's going to stick out more than, oh, I didn't get it, and then sulk out.
Exactly.
People remember the sulking more than the audition.
Yeah. And it's not
So,
a fun experience. You want it to be a
right.
fun experience, regardless whether you get it or not. Just have fun.
Yes. Yeah. First of all, have fun. Because if they see the trepidation in your eyes, they think, oh, they don't, it's,
Yeah.
they're making it the be all end all. If I don't get this, the world's going to crash. I mean, no, it's not.
Right.
Um, but another thing I tell actors, no matter what city you're in, go on Backstage or any of the industry sites, look at union and non-union work. Go on a commercial shoot or a TV show or one camera and just soak up the atmosphere of learning to experience what it's like to be on a shoot. Watch how they set the things up. Also, I tell actors, A, have your tux and evening gown or business corporate attire standing by. And
Mm-hmm.
here's the number one thing I learned from when I talk to actors or casting directors. The number one thing that kills an actor's opportunity is they didn't have their passport. That's the number one
Yes.
thing that kills an actor's opportunity. A,
Yes.
two, that goes along with that is that if you're on a production shoot and the AD says to you, oh, the other person didn't show up, maybe I can give you an under 5, maybe I can give you a waiter or a maitre d' role. That's your opportunity to step up and say, hey, I'm going to make the most of this. Take that under 5 and make it feel like you're done Broadway. Just give it your all.
100. I am with you 100%. Yes.
I mean, when you're ready to do a star's turn, you better be ready.
Yes.
And so many people talk themselves out of that process. It's out of self-doubt. And I realize this: if you're a breadwinner for your family, and I'm not saying this about my father, I'm just saying this about actors in general,
Yes.
is sometimes actors are more afraid of success than they are failure.
Yes.
Because it's like, well, wait a minute, I had to maintain this for 40 years. I had to be the breadwinner for my entire family. Why do I want that pressure? So they talk themselves out of it, or they start resenting family members who don't know that journey is a long journey, it's a lot of rejection. And for what? Because somebody needs another Rolls Royce, somebody needs a second house. My dad didn't want to clean his first house. Why would he want 2 houses? I mean,
Exactly.
why do you need 7 cars? You only have one butt. Why do you need 7 cars?
I love that perspective. I never thought about that.
You have 40 jackets. You only can only wear one at a time.
Exactly. I agree 100%.
I understand this idea that um, you know here's a life motto that I think we talked about. People say, how do you as a brand or an entity like American Airlines or Volvo or TWA is how do you separate yourself from everybody else from your slot in the business? And I say to them, don't give them what they want, give them what they can't live without.
Ah, yes.
It's that undefinable X factor that makes you a household name. Carol had it, John Ritter had it. Some people have that thing where no matter what they do, you watch it because they are
Yes.
mesmerizing to watch. Bernadette Peters or Nathan Lane or certain performers, you can't wait to see them again.
Yes.
So I try to tell artists if I do a mentorship on a group in Chicago or if I talk to any actor, I say to them, look, you have to make your brand so unique. Fame is a byproduct of making yourself so peerless to everybody else in your slot in the business. That's how you become famous, is that nobody else can match what you do. But I also
Exactly.
explain this. Eventually, the Tom Hankses and the Meryl Streeps can't play those roles anymore because they're no longer Meryl Streep and that Tom Hanks that you think about. They have to play the grandma and grandpa role. Well,
Right.
okay, my stepfather, George, made a career out of playing character actors. Yes,
Right.
now my dad's career is measured by the idea that one or two roles made him iconic. But George
Yes.
didn't have the luxury of having that. He had to work as much as he had to maintain your health care, your membership, whatever.
Totally. Yes.
As a character actor, you have to find a niche or niche, and you have to, I tell people, learn dialects.
Mm-hmm.
Learn as many dialects as you can.
Yeah.
Hey, one audition can make you so disenchanted about the business that you can walk yourself out of this business because you took it so seriously. You have to have a life outside of the business that grounds.
Yes.
So find another occupation, another a hobby that
Yes.
grounds you, whether it's art, whether it's painting, whatever it is. So your life doesn't become about your craft.
Yes.
And those those other hobbies will actually enforce your craft by making you more well-rounded, more interesting as a person.
Yes.
So if somebody asks you, "Oh, you need to play a painter," oh, wait a minute, I do this every day. I'm a painter. I can talk about painting. So you've
Yes.
now expanded your horizon by thinking, I'm more than just an artist. I'm a human being. I'm a father. I'm a husband. I'm a wife. I'm a mother. And you make your life more well-rounded and more grounded. And you bring those aspects to your life. You bring those aspects to the role that fleshes out that character. I tell
Yes.
people, um, somebody asked me, what would you consider your father? I said, he's a character actor, whatever. And I started saying he's a subtextualist because he could take a line and he could interpret that same line 20 different ways. He could say good morning 20 different ways. And I go, how do you do that? Is that how do you interpret the line? What
Right.
emphasis do you give that word? And that's why the writers always loved working with my father on the Burnett because my father was classically trained at Goodman
Yeah.
Theater. Uta Hagen said he approached everything as an actor, not as a comedian.
Yes. Exactly. Yes.
Always play the truth, no matter how absurd or bizarre or satirical, is that you always had to play. And one of the rules my father had was you had to have conflict, you had to have
Mhm.
resolution, you had to have truth, and you had to be believable. Be believable. If you saw Lucy on the Lucy show or any of her shows, and you could tell she was mugging, is because she was not uncertain. She was uncertain about that physical business, and you could read
Yes.
her body language sometimes. It's a look of uncertainty. And my dad used to say the same thing about Jack Benny. Comedy is a precision discipline. If you're
Yes.
uneasy about a physical piece of business, you're not going to perform it well. The audience is going to buy into it. They're not buying into it. She doesn't believe what she's doing is right. It's not believable. The audience will pick up on that.
Absolutely.
That's something that
Yes.
my dad learned from Lucy. He learned from Jack Benny. Is that all the disciplines have to come together in order for the cameraman, the boom guy, everybody has to be on the same page because
Yes.
comedy is a precision discipline, and one thing out of line can make the whole thing go astray. But
Absolutely.
with
It's
that saying,
almost like a musical piece,
right,
every note has to be played. Yeah. It's
right,
very, that's how I deal with my stand up. It's like you wait for the laugh. And it's you have to be also in stand up, you have to be in sync with the audience. You have to be in sync
yes,
with them. It's almost like going on a date with them. Sometimes you hit it off, sometimes you
right.
don't. but you have to kind of like see the rhythm. You have your own rhythm, but you also adapt to the audience rhythm. It's weird.
Also, you think about it, in terms of doing stand-up, you have immediate response from the audience. What's
Yes,
working? You don't have that. You have that luxury on a free camera. You don't
right.
have that luxury on a movie though, because
Exactly.
you don't know how long to hold for a laugh because the laugh is at home. So you have to have like a metronome in your head. So my dad used to say, or I would observe this, and I don't know how I observed this. I just did. He had a laugh on the Eunice special. And it was a 90-minute teleplay about Mama. And it was a pilot for the Mama's Family character.
Hmm.
And Mama ends up dying at the end. So it was kind of depressing. And there's a line, he and Eunice and Ed are on the patio. And my dad says, I want you to come over to my place tonight. I got a new photograph needle. Like that's the sexiest thing a man can say to a woman. I got a new photograph needle.
No.
And he put his arms around her. I got a new photograph needle. And, it
Right.
got a 7-second laugh.
Wow.
And 7 seconds is long because now you don't
Yes,
want
it is.
seconds.
It's like,
The
yeah, the Matrix. Yeah.
inclination is you want to start talking because you want the rhythm. And I said
Yes.
to my father, I said, why do most of your laughs last 7 seconds? He said, I didn't know they did. I said, how do you know how they last for 6 seconds? I said, because I had a stopwatch in my hand. I said, you have nothing else better to do than to type to time my laugh. Don't you have homework or trash to take
Right,
out?
right, right.
You don't life, son. But I told him the reason why I learned that was because actors act out on impulse.
Yeah.
One of the things that he used to get mad at Tim about, or some comedians that he worked with, is acting is comedy is adrenaline. You get a laugh. It's like a drug. Now the actor hears that laughter. Why are you talking over the laughter?
You don't. Oh my gosh, no. Embrace the pause. I have
Right,
a comedian friend of mine, Bobby Oliver. She says, embrace the pause.
right.
And also
Because
another thing is hold the emotion.
right,
Like in my comedy, I'm very like passionate about things and I
right,
hold the emotion. And
right,
that will, you're not stepping in their laughter because you're holding the emotion
right,
rather than just like be quiet, right?
right. You're so if you start talking over the laugh, they're not going to hear the next setup. So my dad would say, "Look, Tim," my dad uses that. I can't believe I have to tell this to a seasoned performer, but comedians are different than straight men. Because a straight
Yeah,
man knows how to hold for a laugh, whereas a comedian is going on basic adrenaline. They want that next laugh, but the straight man is trying to hold the actor, let the laughter die down, and then start talking again. It's like a wave.
totally. It is. It's like a wave. And you
Down.
just like as it's going
Right,
down, you hit it here, not before
right,
it goes all the way down. So it's an art form to
right. But
absolutely. It completely is.
but one of the things my dad said, he did a Faulty Towers spoof again with Mel Brooks and Alan Spencer, who created Sledgehammer,
Yeah.
and it was a one camera film. And a lot of actors don't want to do one camera film. Comedians, actually, actors, I should say, actors doing comedies, because there is a laugh track, first of all.
Hmm.
Again, back to this idea is how long is the laugh going to happen at home? You're
Right.
having to assume the audience at home is going to get it, and they're going to laugh a certain time. But the laugh track is going to prompt them to laugh. So now the laugh track is going, and they're trying to figure out, okay, how long is the laugh track going to go for? And I said to my dad, how is it that you can know, even when you're doing one camera, how do you instinctually know how long to hold for a laugh?
Hmm.
I said, what do you mean? I said, you knew how to hold that laugh with chorus a little bit longer because you knew that chorus was going to make a face or do something, and then you could go on with your next dialogue. And you kept the rhythm of the scene. He said, it had nothing to do at home. I mean, you had
Right.
that work or something to amuse yourself. Go watch a ball game. And
No,
that
you were just watching, yeah, analyzing the whole thing. Yes.
think he felt uncomfortable with the idea. And I said this to him before he died. I said, even if you were not my father, you'd still be my favorite performer.
Oh, that is so beautiful. I love that.
And he said, why? Because you're always genuine and real. You've never left a performance in a dressing room. He said, how could you know that? I said, because I know you. You've never cheated your audience. You've never cheated your family. Because you give all to everything. If the material's not working, you find a way to make the material funnier because of your classical training. You knew where the joke is. You know where the moment is. You understand inherently where the writer is trying to go with that moment, and you serve the writer's muse. The actor is the muse for the writer. You're there to serve the writer. He said,
Yes.
I mean, he said, Chris, when you talk like this, I don't think you have a learning disability. Because there are people who don't have a learning disability who don't get that.
Right.
Now you know why I understand why I've been studying you all these years. If I'm going to learn from the best, I'm going to learn from the best. About hoping for a laugh. I mean, I was there in school and I was doing Bye Bye Birdie, and I was thinking to the whole scene: hold for a laugh, hold for a laugh, don't step on the laugh, hold for a laugh, don't mug, don't mug. And I got this big laugh, and I wasn't expecting. And my dad said, "Where did that come from?" I said, "You." I played the moment through. I didn't play the laugh. I didn't play the absurdity in the moment. I played the truth.
Absolutely.
And so he'd call me up. He'd call me at one night, 12 o'clock at night. Trish and I were dating, and now he didn't talk shop, but there were a couple of times in my life where I thought, why is my fellow calling me at 12 o'clock at night? Of course, I'm in the shower. Of course, but his timing really sucks at this moment in his life. And he calls me and said, I'm doing this interview tomorrow for this show, this talk show, and someone's going to ask me about this one movie I'm doing. They brought it up in the I was still doing a talk show, and they had the coordinator call the actor beforehand. What do you want to bring up? What do you want to talk about? And the coordinator brought up the movie that he did like in 1972. I'm like, Dad, do you realize it's 12 midnight? I'm in the shower. I helped the next day, and you're calling me up about a credit in 1972. I said, well, the plot was so and so. So far, who was in it? I said, well, it was Hal Holbrook. It was Agnes Moorehead from Bewitched. I'm like, Three's a Crowd? No. So I started naming off movies that he did in 72. And he said, oh, and I mentioned the right one. He's like, oh, thank you. Okay, good night. I love you. Bye. I'm like, that's it?
It's funny.
Um, but I think
Well,
I
well,
think
I think everybody should read your book.
well, I hope so.
Everybody who's watching, yes, yes. Um, so where can they get your book? Can they
They
get
can
it
get
from you?
Bear Manor, www.bear, BEARMANOUR Press. They can get it on Thrift Book or on Amazon.com.
Okay. And it's, oh
Um,
my God, OMG, it's
oh my
Harvey
God,
Korman.
it's Harvey Korman's son, or they can find it on eBay. And there's so many other different websites I'm sure that they can
No,
find
that's
on.
fine. Everybody goes to Amazon. I know I'm the
Right,
Amazon queen. I get
right,
packages every day. Yes.
yes.
Uh,
So
well, thank you so, so much for being on my podcast, The State of
it's my
Grace.
pleasure, Grace. Anytime.
Thank you. And I'm so happy you found your state of grace.
I did.
And yes, yes. And you overcame a learning disability with the help of your father and yourself. More than anything, you learn to love yourself and you reach your own state of grace. So thank you for being on the show and being vulnerable and talking about your father, yourself, and your challenges. I really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure, Grace. Anytime.
Awesome. But thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And I will talk to you soon. I know I
We
will.
will. We'll talk to you soon. Bye,
All
Paxton.
right. Thank you. Bye. So thank you so much, you guys, for joining. We're going to roll a couple of videos um, that are about the fourth wall, which is my paywall for the fourth wall. If you go to the YouTube bio, you will see Linktree, a linktree.com link, and you can click on it and you can go to my fourth wall and you can get all the digital content that I produce that I have on other platforms, but you can get it here on Fourth Wall. You can get merchandise, you can get my books, you can get everything. So let's roll it, Mystery Man. Let's roll. Great. Thank you so much, Mystery Man. And also, I want to roll another video where I will offer you a free gift if you go to my fourth wall and become a member. You can become a member for 1 month and watch all the content and then stop it if you want. Or you can just stay on the membership and I will release content every first of the month. I release more episodes of the content that's there and new content. So I'm a crazy person, creative, and I'm always producing content. You have Bail on Love. You have the Tias, the award-winning mockumentary. You have a lot of my like reading cards for your ex. All my stuff from here. This is a bad neighborhood. You don't want to go there, but you will if you go to the fourth wall. So let's roll the video for the free gift. All right. Thank you so much, you guys, for joining. Thank you for watching and subscribe. Hit that subscribe button, and you will be notified of more State of Grace podcast lives. And also, we're going to do some pre recorded ones. So stay tuned, and I will see you next time. Thank you for joining us. Mwah.